to get my back blown out in peace. You think I got time to talk about a divorce that's a year old?
Teyana Taylor sat quietly at the long wooden table, her back straight, her hands resting in her lap. She looked strong from the outside, but her eyes gave her away. They stayed fixed on the floor, refusing to meet anyone else's gaze. Her jaw was tight, her fingers slightly trembling. It was clear she was using every bit of strength she had to keep herself together. Across the room, her ex-husband, Aaron Pierre, sat with his arms folded over his chest. His face was calm but unreadable, a mask hiding every emotion beneath it. Between them sat the most important person in the room, their young daughter, Junie. She was small, innocent, and yet her next few words would decide everything. For weeks, their custody battle had been the talk of the town. Behind closed doors, it played out like a slow-motion heartbreak. Tense meetings, long phone calls, and emotional court sessions. Outside, it was a full-blown media storm. Every blog, every social media account, every entertainment site was posting theories, rumors, and paparazzi photos. Fans took sides. Some said Teyana was the stronger parent, the one who'd been there for every bedtime story, every scraped knee, every recital. Others said Aaron had always been the steady one, calm and focused, ready to offer structure and peace. Each court appearance turned into a spectacle. Photos of Teyana walking in wearing sleek suits and dark sunglasses, lips pressed together, determination in her eyes. Then there were the pictures of Aaron, cool and collected, leaving court with that faint smirk that always made headlines. But today was different. This wasn't just about lawyers or paperwork anymore. The judge had decided to do something rare, to let Junie, their daughter, speak for herself. Her voice would help decide where she would live. The judge's voice echoed through the courtroom, steady but distant. He talked about laws, fairness, and what was best for the child. But everyone knew the real moment was still to come, when Junie would finally be asked the question. Teyana clasped her hands tighter. She told herself over and over that Junie knew the truth, that her mother was her home. She remembered all the nights spent reading stories, all the time she held Junie after a nightmare, all the small moments that made their bond unbreakable. Love, she believed, had to count for something. When the child advocate brought Junie to the front, the entire room seemed to hold its breath. Junie looked nervous, her big brown eyes darting between her parents. It broke everyone's heart. She shouldn't have been there. No child should ever have to choose between their parents. The advocate knelt down beside her, speaking softly. "Sweetheart," she said gently, "if you could choose where to live most of the time, who would you want to stay with?" Silence filled the room. No one moved. Even the hum of the lights seemed to stop. Then, in a small but clear voice, Junie said, "I want to live with my dad." The words hit like a thunderclap. You could almost feel the sound ripple through the room. Teyana's head shot up instantly. For a moment, she just stared at her daughter, wide-eyed, as if she couldn't quite believe what she had just heard. Her lips parted slightly, but no words came out. She wanted to say something, anything, but the sound wouldn't come. Junie's expression was calm. She didn't look scared or forced. He just looked sure. And that certainty hurt more than anything else. Aaron didn't react right away. He just sat still, staring at his daughter, then slowly nodded, a quiet gesture of understanding. For the first time that day, his face softened. For Teyana, the moment felt like her world was collapsing. Every memory, every laugh, every dance they'd shared flashed through her mind all at once. Her chest felt tight, her hands went cold, and her heart felt like it had shattered into 1,000 sharp pieces. The judge thanked Junie and had her escorted out. But for Teyana, it didn't matter. The hearing was over. The rest, the lawyers talking, papers being passed around, blurred into meaningless noise. She sat there frozen for a few seconds, trying to process what had just happened. Then she stood up. The sound of her chair scraping the floor echoed sharply through the room. Heads turned as she walked toward the exit, her heels clicking like drumbeats in the silence. Her lawyer whispered her name, reaching out to stop her, but she brushed past him without looking back. She just needed air. When she pushed open the courtroom doors, the chaos outside hit her like a wave. Reporters shouted questions. Cameras flashed. Microphones were shoved toward her face. Everyone wanted a reaction, a statement, a tear. But she gave them nothing. Not a single word. She just kept walking, faster, harder, until she was outside, standing in the blinding afternoon sunlight. For a moment she stopped and closed her eyes. The noise of the city faded, but the sound of her daughter's voice, that one line, "I want to live with my dad," kept replaying in her head. Somewhere behind her, the courtroom doors opened again, but she didn't turn around. She didn't want to see who it was, Iman, the lawyers, the cameras. None of it mattered. She just wanted to be far away from that building, from that moment. By the time she reached the street, her steps slowed. She leaned against a black SUV parked near the curb, her hands shaking as she tried to catch her breath. A tear slid down her cheek, quiet and unplanned. She quickly wiped it away before anyone could see. To the world, she was still Teyana Taylor, strong, fierce, unstoppable. But inside, she felt small, fragile, and completely broken. Losing custody wasn't just about legal terms or visitation schedules. It was losing a piece of her heart, a piece she had carried, protected, and loved with everything she had. As the cameras clicked in the distance, she straightened up, adjusted her sunglasses, and took a deep breath. The world didn't need to see her fall apart. Not yet. She turned toward the car, pulled the door open, and slid inside. The driver asked quietly, "Home?" She hesitated for a second, her throat tight. Then she whispered, "Yeah, take me home." But deep down, she knew home wasn't the same anymore. Because the person who made it feel like home, her little girl, had just chosen to live somewhere else. And as the car pulled away, the city lights began to blur through the tinted glass. The flashes, the voices, the noise, it all faded behind her. All that remained was the ache in her chest and the echo of a truth she'd never forget. Sometimes love isn't enough to make someone stay. The black SUV sat idling at the curb, the engine's low hum barely audible under the chaos in Teyana's head. As she stepped out of the courthouse, flashes from cameras cut through the afternoon sun like lightning. Reporters shouted her name, microphones were thrust in her direction, but she didn't hear a word. Every sound around her blurred into a distant echo. Her heels clicked sharply against the concrete as she walked faster, each step carrying the weight of heartbreak she could no longer hide. When she finally reached the car, her hands were trembling. She pulled the door open, slid inside, and slammed it shut with a force that made the driver flinch. The outside noise vanished, replaced by an eerie stillness. Her chest heaved, and for a moment she just sat there, staring blankly ahead before the first tear slipped down her cheek. Then another. And another. The tears came fast, uncontrollable, as she leaned forward and buried her face in her hands. The courtroom replayed in her mind like a nightmare she couldn't escape. Her daughter's small, steady voice saying the words that shattered her. "I want to live with my dad." Those 6 words cut deeper than any insult, any betrayal, any headline ever could. She had walked into that room believing her love would be enough. That Junie knew, deep in her heart, who had been there for her through scraped knees, fevers, and school performances. But none of that mattered now. The driver said nothing, only glanced at her through the mirror with quiet sympathy. The city outside kept moving as if nothing had happened. People laughing, cars honking, life going on. But inside that SUV, everything had stopped. Time felt heavy, pressing down on her chest until breathing became an effort. Back in the courtroom, Iman hadn't followed her. He hadn't even stood up. He stayed in his seat, still and composed, his face impossible to read. Some who were there swore they saw a flicker of emotion, guilt, maybe even regret, pass over his expression. Others whispered it looked more like satisfaction, like the calm of a man who had just won a battle he never admitted he was fighting. He didn't chase after her. He didn't call her name. And that silence, that complete lack of reaction, hurt more than anything he could have said. It was as if her pain didn't exist to him, as if this heartbreak was just another scene in a story he had already accepted the ending to. Meanwhile, Teyana sat in the back of the car, her body shaking with quiet sobs. This wasn't just about losing custody. It was about losing control of her life, of her narrative, of everything she thought she understood. The betrayal stung the most, not from the judge, not even from the decision, but from the man she had once believed would always stand beside her. She had walked out because staying any longer would have destroyed her completely. The courtroom, the judgment, the whispers, it all became too much. She needed air, space, a chance to breathe again. But even now, sitting in that car with the world moving outside her window, the ache in her chest refused to ease. Her phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Calls from her publicist, messages from friends, notifications lighting up every few seconds. She didn't touch it. She couldn't. She didn't want to read the sympathy texts or the pitying comments online. She didn't want to see the hashtags already trending, hashtag Team Teyana and hashtag Team Un. Fans arguing over who was right, who was wrong, dissecting her heartbreak like it was entertainment. Some said Iman had manipulated their daughter, whispering promises and half-truths until Junie believed she'd be happier with him. Others blamed Teyana, calling her too focused on her career, saying she put fame before family. But none of them really knew what had gone on behind those closed doors. None of them had seen the way she had fought, prayed, and hoped just to hold on to her little girl. She looked out the window at the passing city, her reflection faint against the glass. She barely recognized the woman staring back, strong but broken, fierce yet fragile. Everything she had built, every headline, every show, every song, none of it mattered now. Not when the person she loved most in the world had chosen someone else. Somewhere deep down, she knew this wasn't a temporary loss. This was a shift, the kind that changes everything forever. And as the car began to move, taking her farther from the courthouse and closer to an uncertain future, she whispered to herself almost too quietly to hear, "I'll be okay. I have to be." But even as she said the words, her voice trembled. Because in that moment, sitting alone in the back of a black SUV with mascara-stained cheeks and a shattered heart, Teyana Taylor wasn't sure if she believed it. Not yet.